Hi, everyone. Welcome to our third webinar in the Colorado Water Series webinar. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. For all of y'all who were with us for the first two webinars, we shared some great information about what was happening with Colorado's water crisis, as well as heard from local leaders about how it's impacting the communities around Colorado. And tonight we're going to talk about how to take action. My name is Kevin Richardson. I'm with Halt the Harm Network. I will be helping out tonight and providing technical support. So will Ryan Clover. If you have any technical issues, feel free to chat us and we'll help you resolve it. And your MC tonight will be Alexis Schwartz. Now we have Spanish interpretation prepared for tonight. So before we dive into the program, we're going to pass it over to the interpreters who are going to explain how that process is going to work. So take it away. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Buenas tardes a todos y a todas y todos. Estamos aquí en el tercer webinario sobre el agua en Colorado. Han hecho una pequeña presentación, pero antes de comenzar el tercer webinario, queremos asegurarnos de que por favor puedan seleccionar la configuración para poder escuchar la interpretación simultánea. Si usted está uniéndose a través de su computadora, en este momento puede ver un globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Deberá decir interpretación de idiomas o interpretation, dependiendo de en qué idioma tiene su interfaz. Después de hacer clic en este icono, por favor seleccione su idioma, en este caso español, y si así lo desea nada más escuchar a los intérpretes, puede silenciar el audio original. Hello, everyone. So in this third webinar on Colorado water, we're going to be providing simultaneous interpretation. We ask everyone to please select a language channel. If you're joining us via computer, at this moment, you should be able to see a globe icon at the bottom of your screen. It should say interpretation. Please go ahead and select English and make sure to not mute original audio so you may still hear what's happening in the main room. Para las personas que se están uniendo a través de un dispositivo inteligente como su teléfono o su tableta, deberá tocar ligeramente la pantalla para poder ver el menú de 3 puntos que a menudo dice más o more. Entonces podrá seleccionar interpretación de idiomas, language interpretation, y después seleccionar su idioma como el español. For anyone joining via smartphone, either a phone or a tablet, please make sure to tap your screen lightly to bring up the More menu. Then go ahead and select Language Interpretation and then select English. Please, again, make sure to not mute original audio. And also don't forget to tap Done to activate the selection. Entonces, si ustedes tienen algún problema para poder escuchar a los intérpretes, pueden ponernos un mensaje en el chat en español o pueden enviarnos también un mensaje directo a cada una de nosotros. Okay, I think we're done and I'm going to pass it back to Kevin. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you so much for explaining that. And just to let you all know, we'll do introductions in the chat. So please introduce yourselves in the chat. Give us your name and location. And with that, I'll pass it to our MC, Alexis. Thank you.
Hi, folks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. So this is the third of the water webinar series. And so previously in the first webinar, we discussed some context around Colorado's air quality and water quality quantity issues. So the drought and some of the issues impacting Colorado's water quality. In the second webinar, we heard from impacted residents who lived in the Commerce City area about the issues that oil and gas and the impacts that it has on Colorado water, especially drinking water supplies. And so thank you all for joining in for this third and last webinar, where we'll be focusing on some of the actions that we can take to advance and improve these issues in Colorado. And so an overview of the agenda for tonight is that we'll begin with a quick legislative recap about how some oil and gas related legislation landed in the Colorado legislature this past session. And we'll also, that'll be with Kate of 350 Colorado, and then Ian Tafoya will be discussing Semcor's water permit with us. Then we'll go to Joanne Hackus of Mini Hats and Associations, who will be speaking about an oil and gas drilling permit of a certain area. And then we'll go into the Halt the Harm to introduce their campaign accelerator program. So thank you all for joining us, and we will pass it over to Kate.
Hi all. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm really excited to start. We've been talking a lot about all the different problems, and tonight we're going to be talking about actions and solutions that we can take. But I'd also like to start with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we sit is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, Arapaho people, but also 48 contemporary tribal nations that have historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado, and that these lands and waters are sacred and have been violated and polluted. We honor the elders, past, present, and future, those who have stewarded this land and water throughout generations. We also recognize that the government, academic, and cultural institutions that were founded upon and continue to enact exclusions and erasures of Indigenous people. May this acknowledgement demonstrate a commitment to working to dismantle ongoing legacies of oppression and inequities and recognize the current and future contributions of Indigenous communities throughout the region. So just real quick, and I invite people to add into the chat I know there's people on this call who've been very active in the legislative session that just ended in Colorado. One thing that I would like to highlight is the law that the law, it's not a law yet, is the bill that we focused on during the first webinar that Alexis told us about. That was transparency in oil and gas. It's looking at public oil and gas companies publicly stating what chemicals they're using in fracking fluid. And that one has passed and is headed toward the governor's desk. However, in general, we had several bills that are really important pass. Yeah, I see. It's good, but it also, all of these bills, the hard thing about them is they all got just chopped down. That bill, for example, was supposed to initially let communities know ahead of time before oil and gas companies used all these chemicals, and now they just have to let them know afterwards. Those kind of things, like, you kind of want to know ahead of time. So same with the air quality bill. There was a lot that got taken out, but there's still important first steps, but we have a very large fight to go. And so we're going to look at all the different ways that we can take this on. And if there's anybody who has anything else that they'd like to kind of add about that legislative session, I think another important one is the producer responsibility and PFAS were two that also passed. I see that, yeah, in Pennsylvania, there's a lot of PFAS as well. So that's just a little tiny wrap up. And I would like to introduce Ian Tafoya, who is here. He's the Colorado State Director of Green Latinos and a National River Hero Award winner. And he joined us at the first water webinar, and this time he's going to talk about a couple different ways that people can take action in the intersection of water and how the oil and gas industry is impacting it. So take it away, Ian. Thanks so much for being here.
Great. I hope everyone can hear me. Again, my name is Ian Thomas Tafoya. I'm the Colorado State Director for Green Latinos, a national environmental justice and conservation equity organization who's been working here in Colorado for the last 3 years. And in that time, we have worked on a whole bunch of issues, including some of those bills that you were talking about. I just want to address that head on. We try our best and we turn out a lot of people, but the power is in the people. So if you're sitting back today thinking, man, I didn't testify this last year at the Capitol, or I didn't send a letter, guess what? You have another chance next year. And it is through that power building that we have been able to influence it. There's an air toxics piece of legislation, for example, that I've been working on for 5 years. Since I was a community member from an environmental justice community that became informed about what's happening in my community and looked for avenues to get involved, whether that be through permitting, which we tried with Suncor, it didn't work. But what started as a small community effort of just North Denver turned into elected legislators who ended up taking the bills for us, turned into a statewide movement, really last year, picking up the kind of programs that we need to see, which is what can happen and to protect communities in North Denver can also work to protect people in Pueblo. And that's what happened when we regulated 4 of them under the air toxics bill last year. And this year, we increased it to facilities that are going to be impacted all across the state of Colorado, whether you're talking about Grand Junction, Lakewood, Colorado, Fort Collins, these problems exist everywhere. And so there really is an opportunity for you to get involved. So I was asked to make some connections around oil and gas and just the work that I think Green Latinos has been doing. And I actually met Green Latinos taking on Suncor in my own backyard. What started out as a fight around the I-70 expansion, which I was involved in trying to stop because it was taking homes in my community, increasing pollution load in the already one of the most burdened areas, certainly in Colorado, if not in the United States, for pollution. We started to peel back and realize, oh my gosh, there's like all different kinds of pollution that are impacting our community. Hundreds and hundreds of polluters and doing business as companies who have been polluting these riverways and the airways and the soil, both legacy and currently. So I do want to start by saying that we Green Latinos this Saturday, May 21st in Swansea, if you live in the Denver area, from 11 to 2, we're actually having a community event, which we invite all of you to, where we're actually releasing a report about cumulative pollution in North Denver. One of the things we did learn is there have been more than 100 clean water violations in North Denver alone in the last 3 years, right? Compare that to air violations, and granted, these are all self-reported, there were only 3 over that period of time. So we know there's certainly a disparity between air and water pollution and the self-reporting that's going on, but there's a lot more in that report. We're looking forward to releasing it bilingual. We're also going to have printed copies to send off to the community. So I will drop the link in the chat when I'm done here speaking, but we want to invite you. What we also know from this level of pollution is that these polluters have gotten away with degrading the South Platte River. And the South Platte River is crucially important for so many communities. Whether you're in northern Denver or you're in Aurora, you are literally drawing upon this water to drink. It also goes forward and north towards Nebraska, and it grows the food and that we eat, right? So we get the water clean here in Denver. It comes to us first. And by the time it leaves Denver, it is the most polluted segment of all the waterways in all of Colorado. So we certainly have a deep responsibility as Denverites and as a region to come together to upgrade that. A couple years ago, gosh, maybe like a year and a half ago now, there was an opportunity from the Water Quality Control Commission to upgrade protections on the Platte River. And they didn't notify the community. They didn't even notify the Commerce City or Adams County commissioners. And so we came together with several dozen community groups to actually file for our first ever of its kind hearing, a rulemaking to upgrade protections on the Platte River. And it's been granted. We're on our process. So this September, when I talk about what you can do to get involved, you can show up this September to the Water Quality Control Commission and let your voices be heard, that the rivers and the mountains and the rivers that we live next to deserve the same amount of protection, and that they need to take on the corporate pollution to be able to reduce it. And that's exactly what this will do. We did pass a bill at the Capitol this year, thanks to Representative Adrian Benavides, that is going to require now bilingual engagement into communities for the top languages that are spoken there. In many communities that's Spanish, but in other communities it could be Somali, for example, in Greeley. So we're really hopeful about what that can mean. In that same bill, they actually increased the amount of years that the state government can go after polluters, right? So we know we're understaffed. We know people are slipping through the cracks. there's an opportunity right now to increase that time and to pressure, the Water Quality Control Division to go after the polluters. So Suncor Refinery there's more than one refinery there. I don't know if you all know that, but technically they're managed under 2 different permits, which has been a huge problem for all of us, I think, in having to show up twice to talk about the same business that is literally across the street from each other and is causing the same problems in our community. So that's their air permit. Their water permit has to do with what they're discharging into the river. And we know that there are toxic chemicals that are associated with fossil fuels, benzene being high one of them. And another one, which I think we talked about 2 times ago, and that has to do with PFAS, right? Also known as forever chemicals. Why are they forever? Because they are heat resistant and they don't break down, which is why they use them for chemical fires, which is why they use them to put out fires and to practice for fires at refineries, for example. So we know that they're discharging both of these types of chemicals into the river. And we came together just submitting the comments, I think, in April with, I think the last I looked at it, 3 dozen groups, right? Community-based groups, larger nonprofits, really thanks to Earth Justice, who has been a diligent legal partner to Green Latinos, to me before I worked for Green Latinos, to the people who are being most impacted in the community. But we were responding to requests that had come from Suncor and their water permit. And again, this is us knowing that they were caught by the EPA just a year ago of illegally putting this toxic water into stormwater runoff. And I think one thing that people need to understand that I actually had to go back to school to learn about through the One World, One Water Center at the Metropolitan State University of Denver is that our water is compartmentalized and it is treated in a regulatory way that makes it challenging sometimes to take on the toxics in our community. So I come from a training and a thought, we call it One World, One Water. We know this water moves from stormwater to wastewater to your drinking water, and therefore the toxics do as well. And so in this case, what they were caught doing was taking what would have been treated, should have been treated discharge water, and it was making its way into stormwater outfalls, which means it was going untreated into the Platte River. Incredibly important for us to understand because this has been a corporate polluter who has consistently violated their permits. Whether we're talking about the air permits or their water permits, they have been a bad actor that has gotten away with a lot for a very long time. And so actually in the most recent water permit that was put forward by the state of Colorado, these are some of the things that Suncor requested from a permit, which was a weekend permit. Removing or significantly weakening pollution limits and other permit requirements altogether at various discharge points, removing permit requirements designed to protect the South Platte River, reducing the frequency in which Suncor has to monitor its discharges of certain pollutants, removing requirements designed to prevent discharges of contaminated groundwater into the Sand Creek and Burlington ditch, and eliminating all requirements to public notification following spills. Now, they were requesting this because our pressure has been working. The permit that was put forward by CDPHE was certainly the strongest permit that has ever existed for Suncor, but it could be stronger. And so we've taken it upon ourselves, these 36 groups in the community, to fight for that. We expect to have some sort of decision later this year. And so I hope that you watch that process, because there may be an opportunity that we may have to rapid response if what we get isn't what we asked for. If we get more of the same, which is allowing these industrial polluters to cause us harm, or perhaps we win. And in which case, I think something our community doesn't do enough is win the win. We have to celebrate the successes we have. And even if they're not 100% of what we wanted, we're building power. I can tell you that from an environmental justice community that started with the fight on I-70. Just today, we heard they said they wouldn't widen I-25 through Denver, which is also a Latino community. So I hope that you just take a moment to win those wins. And also, we have to be more creative. And that's where I'm going to dovetail into the second work that the second connection to oil and gas and water that Green Latinos has been working on. So we have a strong partnership with the University of Colorado Public Health School, where we've been doing a lot of analysis, like the report that I was telling you about this Saturday that we're getting ready to release. Well, I worked with the school about a year ago, and we're going to release that report as well. We've been building up the resources to translate and to put it out. But it takes a look at how do we take on the water problem in oil and gas, right? Because they're using a lot of water, they're taking it out of the cycle, and they may be spreading that toxic water back out onto fields that are impacting us because, again, one water, even if you spread it out, it may come back together and bioaccumulate. And so through that research, we used Weld County as an example of what are the ways in which water is coming out or coming in and coming out of Weld County. And some of the things we learned is that there's an entire reservoir that is being used for fracking in this area. That's very possible they're paying lower water rates than community members are paying for drinking water, right? And so there are perhaps some lever points for communities that are on the verge of being fracked, who are in the midst of being fracked now, to use your local water board to talk about the rates at which they're paying, right? To increase the cost and perhaps using that to benefit other programs. Whether that be just transition funds, which is something that was suggested from our report, or simply upgrading the other infrastructure. Now, I'm not so naive to think that just because you increase the water rates, that it's going to stop them from doing business, right? But it is a tool that hasn't been leveraged. Some of the feedback we've heard from community members, though, are if you live in a community that is heavily dependent on oil and gas and austerity is a concern, right? They've hitched their teachers and their firefighters and their police and their budgets to this one commodity, which has been called out in the Just Transition report as something that needs to change because of diversification. Some people may feel fear. Just because there is a public process doesn't mean that people are going to come out from the community to feel targeted to participate. And I want to tell you a personal story. I went out to Rifle, Colorado on an air quality issue. Rifle, Colorado is nearly 50% Latino. There were 2 of us in that room. I went there to support my friend Beatriz Soto, who is now the head of Conservation Colorado Protégete. And they literally allowed somebody in with a shirt that said, "Go home, wetbacks." I had not heard that derogatory word since I was in middle school. And these racial slurs are a reality for some of these communities and rural communities that are being impacted. And those who are trying to speak up for their water quality or their air quality feel silenced and threatened. And so what we learned was just because there is a pathway to increase water use rates doesn't necessarily mean it's a viable path. And that's where sometimes we come into this federalism conversation, right? Are we in a place where the state needs to come in to protect people because the local governments aren't? And we know that in Colorado, there is this very strong push-pull between local control and state control. And in this case, it was shared with us that people probably wouldn't come forward in Greeley to talk about water rates. So the other side of the coin, and I'll finish up here because I think I'm flowing close on my time, is we talked about wastewater. What are the rates they're paying for wastewater? To either put it back out, to clean it up, to put it back in the water stream? Are they spreading it around? Are they injecting it? Either way, they're paying a fee, right? Some sort of fee to the state government for what they're doing to the water, and they have responsibilities to it. And so our analysis said perhaps there's a path for increasing wastewater fees on the toxic wastewater that's coming out of these facilities. And could we, again, redirect that revenue to a Just Transition Fund so you can begin to break the strangleholds? Use the beast to break the beast is basically what some of the research began to show us. We are not fully developed, right? This was a very early stage analysis of what is happening with oil and gas. And we are produced these similar kind of reports in response to Bella Romero about how school districts can be involved in oil and gas decisions. We recently just finished another report with them that's taking a look at the midstream and how can we target pipelines and trains and truck traffic and what those impacts are on our community. And I'm happy to say that Green Latinos is probably later this week going to be posting a fossil fuel policy advocate whose entire job is going to be taking on and learning from this research that we've done over the last 3 years. So keep an eye out for that. But these are just a couple examples of from local school boards to state races. There is a place where there are decision makers that you can let your voice be heard. And if you have fear, come to us because we're stronger together. And like I said, the work has shown that. So with that, I think I'm done with my part, but just know there are a lot of really great people who are trying to figure out new lanes, right? And what we've learned over these years, whether that was air toxics or this water quality, is we hit one roadblock, we can't spend 10 years trying to pass the same thing. We have to also move on to new avenues.
That's great. Thank you, Ian. You have so many great examples of different ways that we can work on the solution to this problem. Does anyone have any questions? I saw a lot of comments in the chat, and I just want to elevate the idea that dilution is not the solution to pollution. It's good, good rhyme. I thought that was good, and thanks for sharing that meeting. And it looks like JD has a question. And just before we go, you're hearing me do more pauses. I'm just trying to practice for our interpreters so they have time to catch up, and just to remind everybody that um, it takes a little while to interpret. So it pausing between thoughts is a good idea. So I thought JD had his hand up, but I don't see it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. This is more of a comment. Are you there?
Yeah, we can hear you, JD.
This is more of a comment. And I want to say this again, I do not want to distract from the idea that we shouldn't celebrate our victories. That's not what I'm saying. But we need to take a look at life, the reality of it. We're getting ready to see the Supreme Court change the rights of women. I just got through watching members that look like my family. You know, they just had it again where they were slaughtered in a store, you know, that happened here. Folks, we have got to buckle down and do this now. We don't have time to wait. So when you say, oh, a little victory is a victory, no, we don't have time. This is getting serious. They knew about the way that this stuff is evolving since the 50s. My generation, for years, todos, we've been doing this and nothing has happened. Mira, familia, todo es tiempo, it's time now. Don't sit there and play the same game we did. My family's still being shot. You know, this ain't funny. This is for real. This is our life right now. Yes, embrace the victories. Pero we better be right there standing front and center. You know, and I don't know if you guys seen, but even the homeless, the entire Denver City Council walked out on these people. They won't even address these types of issues of homelessness. This is insanity. We've got to go. So don't buy that. Now's the time, you guys. Take it from todo ese viejito. You know, yeah, my mind may be gone, but I'm telling you, it's going to get bad. It's going to get bad. It's coming. Si vienen. So now's the time to buckle down. And I can't be doing it. And look at all our ancestors that are actually still in prison from this. The slap suits are coming. They're gaining power and they're gaining strength. Si lo puedo. Ana, let's do this.
No.
Celebrate the victories. But you guys, we're going to have to get tough and don't even take no for an answer.
Yeah.
Anda.
Thank you for sharing that, JD. Yeah, I think that's why we're all here, is because now I totally agree with you. Now is the time to act. We're in a crisis state, but sometimes I think too, like, it's hard to keep going if we don't find the moments of joy and celebration too. So, but thank you.
Kate,
so
can
much.
I just jump in there really quick? Because, you know,
Totally.
JD and I have a relationship and we work together.
Yeah.
He's talking about the 1950s, 60s, 70s that gave us the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act. The air toxics bill that we just passed was promised to us in the 1972 Clean Air Act, right? So we are completing generational work right now, and we have to keep fighting. And I agree, we have to buckle down. And I'm not a person that takes no easily. That's why we've been able to pass our toxics bills and these things. But I do think that if we don't take the time to celebrate even a little bit, like this Saturday, then we're going to burn ourselves out. And right now we need to double down on our strength, like you're saying, JD.
Yeah, and that's why I said that. Yes, take the time to celebrate. Pero mira, I've had rocks thrown at my house. I'm going to be celebrating, but I'm going to be building a barricade around my house. We have a choice. We need to face the reality. It's coming. Si vienen, and that's all I'm trying to say. Yes, celebrate the victories, but we need to be facing. You guys are in a worse predicament. We had the time. We had the time to negotiate. Pero tiempo todo se fue. It's gone. I hate to say this, but you guys, I apologize. I'm leaving you in this state. We're leaving you guys in the front now. You guys are actually on the front lines. So yes, celebrate. Take the time to rest. I had to do that. I had to leave and come back and todo. So I understand. Believe me, I understand. But it's coming to you whether you want it or not.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, JD. And if and I'm sorry to cut off, but to make sure we have time for all our speakers and all the movement building that we're doing at the end, I want to make sure that Joanne gets a chance to speak to give us another option for taking action. So, and people can put more thoughts and comments in the chat too. So thank you for sharing that, JD. I really appreciate it. And I need to pass it on to Joanne Hackus now. As Alexis said earlier, she wears many hats, and I think the hat she's wearing tonight as the oil and gas lead for Sierra Club Colorado, and she has a message for us. Go ahead, Joanne.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate JD's comments. I've been working on this for 50 years, and it does get a little discouraging because you have a few victories and lots of failures. I'm 76 years old, so there's a lot of time you put into this, trying to make a difference in a lot of ways. One day, years ago, I was asked to talk about the Equal Rights Amendment, which, of course, as you know, never passed. And I was asked to speak on a radio program, and I had an opponent who I had never met and knew nothing about, and we debated for quite some time. And it turned out she was the primary advocate against the ERA. So we keep fighting the same battle sometimes over and over again, but we have to keep doing it. I want to talk about, in particular, how people can help us in working on the use of water in the fracking operations. It's so discouraging and so enormously problematic. Right now, while we've been reviewing the water permits on a number of the drilling plans that are being sent to the Oil and Gas Commission for approval. And many of these, of course, get approved with no questions asked. For the most part, they are using millions and millions of gallons, often fresh water, groundwater, rarely recycled water. One of the things that we've seen that I think is really interesting, and I might just try sharing a screen picture if that's possible. Let's see, I gotta find the right one though. And that is what we get when we ask for information about how much water they're using. Is that possible, Kate? Can I share a screen?
I think so. Does it have it at the bottom of your screen? Do you have a share screen?
I do, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one I want to share. I want to share this picture because it's so beautiful. It says, this was a Kerr-McGee proposal. That was approved, of course. And this is what they gave us for the information on the water sources. And it's very typical of what you see. You notice that in this chart, everything is blacked out. Because they don't want you to know where they're getting the water from. They were going to be using 2.2 million barrels of water for their operation. And who's selling it to them? Where it's from? We don't know. They don't want to tell us. And we're in a drought, right? Everybody knows that. We don't have enough moisture. We don't have enough snow. We're in a serious drought. And this is what we get from the people who are going to use our water, our precious water, to frack oil wells. We get blacked out charts, no information. Now, luckily, the one that we've been working on today and this week and this last month, they have given us the sources. We know, for example, that for what's called the Warbler pad, the proposal is to use 44 or 7.05 million barrels of water in the drilling operation that will be directly across the road from Barr Lake State Park. Barr Lake State Park has a very shaky history of water usage. The inputs to it have always been very limited. Alexis thankfully found a wonderful article from 2000, back from 2000, when Barr Lake was let to go dry. And if you've been to Barr Lake, you know it's one of the most popular destination for people to hike, to observe the waterfowl, the birds. We get thousands and thousands of sandhill cranes in the spring and in the fall migrating through. It's a great place to see white pelicans if you haven't seen them before. And it is the location of the largest winter roost of bald eagles in this part of the country. Hundreds and hundreds of bald eagles roost there in the winter. It's also the site of bald eagle nests. And having it go dry is a catastrophe. Not only does it kill all the fish that have been that are in the lake, but it kills, it affects everything that eats the fish, eats the insects, relies upon moisture for life. And the proposal coming from the operator, the oil and gas operator, is to buy their water from an agricultural farmers reservoir and agricultural company. There are 7 million barrels of water from the canal that is associated, we think, with Barr Lake. Now, in the article in 2000, the reporter wrote that they needed to drain the water from Barr Lake to protect the agricultural interests in the area, to protect the farms. And I wonder if they're going to tell the same story again. We have to have this water to protect the farms. At the same time, of course, that the farmers or the irrigation group is selling the water to oil and gas. You know about the changes that occurred at Chatfield State Park, for example, where they completely bulldozed the park in order to accommodate what was promised to be more water. Hasn't happened yet. We're fighting for Barr Lakes Park because the Army Corps of Engineers wants to raise the water levels by 50 feet in Barr Lake State, not Barr Lake, but I'm going to forget the name. Morrison Lakewood State Park, drowning the riparian areas and all of the wildlife that depend on those areas. And what is that water being used for? What we're hearing is that water is going to go along the Front Range, up the I-25 corridor, to places like this well site that's going to be, that they hope to drill next to Barr Lake State Park, or like the wells that we got stopped in the middle of a neighborhood in Firestone. that water coming from places like Chatfield State Park and the Morrison Park they're saying they're going to the Front Range communities. Well, the Front Range communities are selling their water to the oil companies. We know, for example, that water usage by the communities has actually decreased. People are being careful about watering lawns or replacing lawns with xeriscapes that don't take as much water. We know that the water usage is being reduced by the towns, but they need more water because they're going to sell it away. So the draining of Bar Lake that occurred 20 years ago could happen again, but this time it's not being used for agriculture. That's a smokescreen. What we'd like to do, and Alexis, maybe you can put something into the chat with some dates. We'd like to have people who would join us to give testimony when this well proposal comes up in the COGCC, in the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, for approval. We'd like people to talk about the fact that that water in a drought is needed for agriculture, is needed for wildlife, is needed for people, and it shouldn't be going down a fracking hole and getting polluted so that it is no longer viable drinking water for the population. We know, for example, about a community in Wyoming where none of the wells produce drinkable water anymore. And that community has no water source except to truck it in. So we're waiting, and Alexis, if you can give us the dates, if we know them yet. I'm not sure we do.
Sure. This is
When
June
we're gonna get
29th.
ready. June 29th. So we got some time to get people signed up to say they don't want the water being taken out of our state parks, our reservoirs, in order to supply water to oil and gas fracking operations. So, thank you, Kate. That's my message today.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Really appreciate it. Do you want to drop your email into the chat, and I can drop mine as well? Anybody on this call can reach out to either of us about getting more information at putting forward some testimony, either written or verbal testimony to COGCC for this, because it's super important. Thanks so much for sharing that. I love Bar Lake and all the eagles there. So thanks. So
Alexis
all right,
beat me to it.
my night. I'm sorry, what'd you say, Joanne?
I said Alexis beat me to it. There's my
Oh yeah, that's perfect. So I hope I did. That's okay that I volunteered you, but I think
That's fine.
yeah, sometimes.
I'd like people to, we have the Sierra Club Oil and Gas Committee,
Mhm.
and this is one of the actions we're taking right now. Please join us.
Yeah, we'll be there for sure. But sometimes if you haven't commented at the COGCC before, it can be intimidating process. It can
Yeah.
feel intimidating. So
But you can write a note.
Yep, I'll put my
You
email
can
in
also
too.
write a note.
So reach out to us for sure to get some support if you want. Because it's an important, super important issue. I thank you so much, Joanne. I really appreciate that and all the work you do. We are going to pass the rest of the program. Now that we've had some ideas of ways to target um, oil and gas operations and their impact on water. We've had some ideas from Ian Thomas Tafoya. We've had some ideas from Joanne Hackos, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call also have other ideas and for targeting things. And to help us with that, we have Halt the Harm, which is a national network. So we're going to turn the rest of the evening over to Kevin Richardson and Ryan Clover. They are both with Halt the Harm, Kevin is the senior fellow with Halt the Harm, and Ryan is the digital strategist. So take it away. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Can you hear me okay? Awesome. All right, and Kevin and Raina is also here with us, Raina Ripple with Halt the Harm Network.
Sorry, Raina.
It's okay, Raina.
Raina Ripple is here too for Halt the Harm. My apologies.
Raina wasn't at the pre-webinar, so totally understand, Kate. But Raina and Kevin, are you both here?
Hey, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
All right, great. So all three of us are here. My name is Ryan. I'm with Halt the Harm Network, and I'm really excited to transition to what we've prepared to talk about now. One of the things that we wanted to do was, I'm actually going to share my screen, and then we're going to invite all of you here to write in the chat and actually, or speak up too, and just share where what issue you're working on and where you're located, because then we can visualize a little bit of everything. And then after we talk a little bit about the different issues and who's here, we're going to talk about the things that are needed, that we all need in order to run effective campaigns. And we'll talk a little bit about how we're defining campaigns in this regard. And then after that, we're going to share with you something that we've been developing with Halt the Harm Network, and we've done 2 programs already, and it's called a Campaign Accelerator. So we have a short presentation for you on that. So I'll start by sharing my screen here. And I just want to invite folks to, and hold on just a moment, let me find Colorado. There we are. I know that this isn't a very detailed map, so I am mostly going to be putting sticky notes on here, and if I can find a better map, I'll drop one in. Actually, I'll put the link in the chat in case Kevin or Raina want to jump in with me on this too. But all right, let's hear from some people. Where are you tuning in from, and what issue are you facing? And if you want to put it in the chat, either Kevin or Raina can read it off. All right, maybe let's start with Kate. Kate's comfortable. Where are you tuning in from, Kate? We're just gonna go through. We're gonna get everybody on here. Everybody
Put
wants
in
to be
the
on
chat.
here.
I'm in Lafayette, Colorado. I put that I'm fighting the frack around the state, but
Awesome.
also, is that specific enough?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Okay. Let's keep going.
In the chat, Ryan, we have Lori from Fort Collins, and that's bad air quality.
Awesome.
And then we have Anne from Denver, who's fighting Suncor. We heard Ian talk about.
We're just going to visualize like some of the different issues that are happening in the state. Yeah, if you put it in the chat, it actually makes it really easy, because then I can copy and paste a little bit. Who else is here?
We have several people from Pueblo who are weighing in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, great. Thanks, everybody. Keep it coming, and I'll keep adding it, and then we're gonna just get a picture of like who all is working on different issues here. You can hear my mouse clicking away.
Well, all the comments are coming in where people are based and where they're fighting. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about what Ryan mentioned about what we're doing with this exercise. We've heard, about local struggles around water, and we've heard about statewide issues with legislation, regulators, and other things like that. But as we all know, solving the water crisis, addressing it, is going to require not only large-scale solutions, but a number of small local fights. And so that's why we want to get an idea of what are the local issues across the state and what are people fighting in their local communities. Because ultimately, the battle over the future of water quality and water resources in Colorado will be fought in these local communities. And our thinking is to figure out exactly where we're fighting, who's doing it, and how can we support people in those local movements.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, thanks, Kevin, for bringing that up. One of the things that we'll reiterate a couple times when we talk a little bit about Halt the Harm Network and what we're building here is that we're not building a coalition, and we're not building a group that we're asking people to join. That it's a network, and networks are pretty different. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about how we define a network and what network-based campaigns could look like and look like. So let's start talking a little bit about some of the issues that we're facing here. So you've all mentioned different issues, but let's talk a little bit about solutions. That's a big part of what this event is about. So just name or drop in the chat a campaign like goal or objective or solution that would be valuable to you. And I'm going to list those with a different color.
It sounds like one universal goal is getting rid of Suncor.
There we go. Let's break that down a little bit. Like, what would that require? We're going to brainstorm a little bit, like ideas for like campaign activities. So I can seed this a little bit as well. Judy says education. Okay, I don't have to seed it. It's coming. It's flowing. Awesome. Education, new laws or regulations that require high percentage of water reuse. We have regulation enforcement. Shut down wells. Lowering the current acceptable pollution levels. To basically zero. Yeah, feel free to add on, and if I'll do my best to link concepts together. Money out of politics. If I missed something too, let me know. Velma says strengthening and enforce permits that allow toxic substances into air and water, put people before pollution. All right. Okay, there's a couple of things that I've seen in other meetups. People have talked about rallies, right? Actions. And also feel free to be specific or add to something that somebody said. So someone said education. What else can you think of that might be related to education? We have get people talking about the ability to do something for our health and our housing community. So that's interesting to me because it's pointing out like a specific audience in our housing community. Someone says occupy offices of decision makers. We have better commissioners. Get the governor to appoint real advocates. So we're making a big brainstorm list here. Judy says radioactive contamination isn't being addressed. So I could say address radioactive contamination. And then someone says how to talk to people beyond the choir about this. So you might even say something like, talk to people beyond the choir, right? Awesome. Someone says vote. Recall. Elect more environmentalists. So you can start seeing that there's some themes coming up, right? So there's some themes already. What are some of the themes that are coming up?
Definitely see fundamental change at the decision maker level, whether it's local county governments, your city government, or your state legislature.
Great. So we've got policy. So now we have a new color showing up here on the map. Right. We have education. I could say that might be a theme, right? Education, outreach. What other themes? Bring back beavers to slow water from the snow melt. I'll put solutions. If there's a better word, let me know. Divest from oil and gas, someone says. So that's interesting. So we've got money out of politics. We've got divest from oil and gas. What should we call that? Should we call that like an economic strategy?
Mhm.
What category does rallies and direct actions go in? How about movement building? Building capacity. So little conversation came up about that earlier. You know, talking about celebration. Maybe celebration has a role in movement building. It's not about taking a break. It's about building. So that's what I heard. There's there's a variety of different kinds of actions, right? There's actions that help shape what we're doing. There's actions that help sustain what we're doing. And there's actions that can be really decisive, like, you know, shutting down a specific facility or stopping something, blocking a road or enacting a policy, right? So rallies and actions could equal advocacy as well. So, yeah. So you kind of see where I'm going with this, right? We can start looking at different types of actions, and we can see that there's so many different things that we could be focusing on, right? There's so many different ways for people to participate in addressing this issue. So many different types of talents, different communities that could be mobilized to take action. one example that was really powerful for me was seeing a campaign that was working on addressing a gas storage facility in the Finger Lakes where I live. And this is a big underground salt caverns that were empty from the salt mining. And they figured, why don't we put pressurized methane inside these caverns? What could possibly go wrong? And so, of course, we're protesting it. And the organizers did something really unique. They had actions at the gates, and they had a Mother's Day action, and they had a Father's Day action, and they had an educator's action. You kind of get the idea, right? They had a farmer's action. They brought out themes for different audiences. And what ended up happening was that they actually brought out more people. That trying to just have everybody ends up only having a certain kind of person. But when you really name the people, you make them think, I had an opportunity to fight this. And am I going to pass that up? Am I going to have to tell my children that I passed up that opportunity? Because I was named for that. I was invited specifically, because not everybody identifies as an activist, right? We know that when not everybody here at this meeting identifies that way. So just in this visual alone, it's clear that there's a lot of different people here with different interests, different ideas will come into their mind of the solutions. And we can really tap into that power that we're able to build through networking. And so we're going to shift a little bit to talking about what is a network and why, why Halt the Harm Network exists. And I want to create a space for Raina or Kevin to introduce themselves a little bit more in terms of what brought them into this work. And so I actually, in doing that, I realized I didn't properly introduce myself either. I just started talking and running this wild, like very quiet sticky note exercise. If this was in person, it wouldn't be so quiet, I'm sure, right? So thank you so much for participating in that. My brief introduction is that my name is Ryan. I'm with Halt the Harm Network. I live in the southern tier of New York, so near the Pennsylvania border, not near New York City at all. And I have been working on fracking issues since 2008. I worked in farms and food service for 10 years. And then the oil and gas industry started drilling at one of the orchards that I worked at. And so that was my sort of big moment of, wow, this is happening. So I started to travel and get involved in different environmental campaigns and learn a lot about movement building, and helped start an organization around here that was based on building networks. And we built a network of around 20 or so small towns in our region. And so I'm really excited that I could still be part of this movement now, connecting with you all from all the way across, across the country here in Colorado, just to learn more about what you're all doing. So thank you. And now I'll turn that over to Raina.
Thanks, Ryan. And I have gotten to know a lot of you, but there's so many people on this webinar tonight, which is fantastic. I joined Halt the Harm basically last summer, so it's been almost a year for me that I've been a senior fellow. And prior to that, I had been working where I live, which is Washington County, Pennsylvania, in the heart of the Marcellus Shale drill zone. And we are one of the most heavily fracked counties in Pennsylvania. So I was the founding director of the Southwest Pennsylvania Environmental Health Project, working on a public health approach to try and understand exactly how we were being poisoned by this industry. So building the movement with Halt the Harm means so much to me. It's really a life or death issue. And I see it as such, and I am extremely, horrified at the amount of poisoning I have seen in the communities I've worked with. And just here to help people fight back. Kevin?
Hi everyone. Thanks, Raina. My name is Kevin Richardson. I'm with Halt the Harm, and that's part of what I do, but most of my work is dedicated to working in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to fight fracking near schools, homes, and daycares. And that's what's animated me to be associated with Halt the Harm and to sort of join this network-based movement, precisely because the small group that I work with in the Dallas-Fort Worth area started as a small grassroots organization of 1 or 2 people who knew nothing about campaigning, and built a movement that's gained national media attention and has helped stop significant gas well permits next to schools and other parts of the suburbs. And that organization was able to do that through the support and help of Halt Harm Network by working with others across the country who knew how to fight fracking, who knew how to fight on these issues, to share resources and knowledge, learn about campaigning and so forth. So that's why I'm excited to share with all of y'all tonight, sort of an opportunity for how we can all take action together and support each other's local campaigns and help build up small and large grassroots movements across the state of Colorado. And what that can look like, because when we started this webinar, when we started planning this webinar series a few months ago, we knew there was a water crisis in Colorado. We knew that we had a lot of great information and resources on it, as well as many people who are directly impacted by it. Everyone's impacted by water across the state, but we knew we had a number of people that we've heard about some horrible impacts, and you heard it from Ian and about Suncor and from folks last week as well. But we also wanted to make sure that this webinar was about how do we take action? How do we move past this? How do we take these terrible, horrific stories we hear, take them from issues, and turn them into campaigns that we can win with? And that's really, I think, one of the most wonderful and beautiful things we can build out of this, to go back to Ian's point about celebrating, is to take a step back in the face of all of these barriers and these problems, and to support each other and uplift each other and help each other build winning campaigns that will, in local communities and counties and cities and towns or across the state, make significant inroads on water issues. And I think this is a really great opportunity. I'm really excited by all the participation in these webinars, and I'm really excited to build on it, because I think there's so much interest in this topic, there's so much passion around it, that we want to take hold of that opportunity tonight and turn it into some real action going forward. So yeah, I'm excited, and thank you for the opportunity. And Ryan, do you want to share a little bit more about how we do that concretely?
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I'll share my screen here. All right, so you can see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, great. So one of the things that we've learned over the years of doing work with campaigns is that campaigns get stuck in one of these 4 areas, one or all. So gathering information and resources. A lot of us will find ourselves reinventing the wheel. We sort of have a hunch that there's another organization out there that probably has done a lot of work to gather certain resources or research, but it's not all accessible to us, or it's not obvious exactly where we should go to get it. Feels like we have to have connections in order to get those things, right? So that's an area where people get stuck. It holds them back from being able to move forward and start a new organization or launch a campaign. Mobilizing people. There's a lot of skills that are involved in mobilizing people. And things like, how do you send mass emails, or how do you set up a message board, or how do you organize events? Like, these are all skills that we can build and get better at. Creating a strategy and messaging. If you've ever felt frustrated that you feel like you're the only one who is paying attention to this, and the people around you aren't really taking it that seriously, they might think, oh, there's so-and-so always, worried about this big issue. Well, it's because they don't understand, right? They haven't like really grasped the urgency or the threat that faces them. And so we're frustrated because we need to develop our skills. We're stuck in our strategy. We're stuck in our messaging. Launching a campaign is also a skill. Many of us have had experiences all the time, actually, where there's opportunities to do outreach. There's a new story. There's a new crisis. There's something that proves beyond a doubt the situation that we're in and the urgency of it. Are we able to take that moment and transform that into an opportunity to help mobilize and build our base? So all of these things we can get stuck in, and you're not alone. We all get stuck in those things. They all require skills. We don't have to learn all the skills when we work in a network. We can connect with other people who bring skills, but it's helpful, I think, to put them into these buckets. So one of the things that we've also identified here is that to launch a campaign, and this is to be specific about water issues, for example, feeling confident speaking on it, knowing what targets are the best use of your time. So that's the strategy part. What's the point of intervention that's going to be most effective for our limited resources? Having our materials organized, talking points, graphics, articles, letters to the editor, things like that. Connecting with experts, having those connections, knowing someone that you can call who can speak, at a local event or, give a presentation, talk to the media, confirm and back you up so that you're not just showing up with concerns, but you're able to bring people who would be able to add some legitimacy depending on who you're trying to talk to. And feel free to add to this list, join in the chat and add things, because there's lots of things that we need to win these battles, but these are just some of them. Meanwhile, the industry, they're pretty sophisticated, right? They've got public relations teams, they've got lawyers, they've got lots of professionals, because they just throw millions and millions of dollars toward legitimizing, getting what they want, pushing us down, disregarding us, all that kind of stuff. So we have to be strategic. And the way that we believe that we do that is by leveraging each other's talents and each other's skills in a network. So this picture, this is a screen print. It actually, I have some of the prints behind me because we're mailing them out as gifts for the recipients of the Sentinel Awards. It's such a powerful image, right? When we swarm, just the power of a swarm. The Campaign Accelerator is something that we've put together that's a 4-week program, and it is an opportunity to bring all of us together to share those resources and to share some of the training, but also some pro bono services, technical support specifically to help you launch a campaign. And we should define a little bit what we mean by launching a campaign. And so I want to open that up to either Kevin or Reina to talk a little bit about what that means and how we can do that in 4 weeks.
Well, I can add in a little bit because I was part of one of the first Campaign Accelerator programs, and then was always in Ryan's capable hands, which are, as you can see, very capable. This is a way for us to literally accelerate, right? So we will put some of those things together that Ryan pointed out in the buckets, and we'll make them available to you. So we'll have, for instance, a Campaign Accelerator briefing package, which absolutely dives deeply into any of the issues. So, and I'll just put this in context. The first one that we did was on PFAS. So we built that around the actual PSR report, which many of you have seen, which focused in on Colorado. And we tried to bring together people who were associated with the PFAS issue from around the country. And so, it's an opportunity for you to have a really targeted conversation with some of the experts and to really have all of the resources compiled so that it takes the burden off. So you've got a head start, you're accelerated, you're ready to pick up what we've done for you and run with it. We do as much of the heavy lifting as we can and working with some of our partners, and then we turn it over to you.
This is, I'm glad you mentioned the briefing package because, you know, looking at the different like points of intervention is an important thing that we can all share. So if somebody does the research and identifies what are the local policy levers, what are the state policy levers, what are all the various pressure points that can really irritate and cause this massive industry to struggle. If somebody does that research and we can compile it and we can look at, you know, the industry response and how to respond to it, that sharing of information is really something. It's really powerful. Kevin, do you want to add anything about how we define a campaign? Because that word could mean a lot of different things.
Yeah, if you want to hit the next slide real fast.
You bet.
Yeah, so, you know, I've been involved in I've been involved in local campaigns at the community level. I've been connected to statewide campaigns and kind of everywhere in between. And there's a lot of different ways to approach fighting for the things we believe in and fighting for protecting our environment. But the kind of universal thing that we all have to do is, you know, take an issue, figure out how to solve it, and then turn that into a campaign where we convince people, whether it's the decision makers or whoever holds the power, to take an action. And so that's exactly what the Campaign Accelerator is geared at. We want to take people through the different phases that are oftentimes stumbling blocks or roadblocks for getting a campaign and action off the ground. And I've been in big coalitions, small coalitions, and individual groups where we've always struggled at these different points, whether it's the beginning point, like researching and figuring out the issue and solution, whether it's developing an actual campaign strategy and messaging, which I think is oftentimes the biggest stumbling block. Like, how do you think about who you're going to target and how you're going to convince people, both around you and opposed to you, how you're going to address that? And right, I see Ellen and Ron's comment in the chat is exactly right. You don't need to be an expert. That's one of the key kind of elements of grassroots campaigning. It's not about being an expert, but how can we take control of our own fate and our own environments locally? And we have the ability to kind of share that knowledge and resources and build it together. And then going through and planning and mobilizing people and then finally launching campaigns. So the whole point of the accelerator is to actually get something off the ground and to act on it, so that we've held each other accountable. We've gotten past the stumbling blocks. We've worked together and helped everyone get their different issues out. And now we're actually campaigning, getting people involved and so forth. Ryan, can you hit the next slide?
You bet.
Yeah, and so what it looks like is a lot of it's really just sort of getting together, networking with people and co-learning together about different campaigns under this rubric of the water crisis. So we'll have weekly workshops and trainings with other Colorado water advocates. You'll learn about the issue through the briefings that Raina mentioned and collaborative research. There'll be help writing campaign messaging as well as planning documents. And again, the goal is to get ready to launch an actual action or campaign, whatever fits everyone's local issue. Ryan, can you hit the next one? And it's basically for anyone and everyone. It's not about joining a coalition or a group. It's if you're a community organizer, if you're a local accidental activist, someone who, you know, a gas hole showed up in your backyard and that's where you're at. If you're a campaigner, if you're an expert, or if you're a communicator, or if you're a member of a bigger group, it's open to all those kinds of people. And we invite everyone to come together and learn from each other, because I think one of the big things that we like to do is to facilitate that interaction between local grassroots community members and large organizations, and sort of elevating everyone at the same time. And Ryan, can you get the next slide? Cool. And so again, going back to the benefits of this, and I really want to emphasize this because this has meant a lot to me, having a network there to support your actions. I've never been able to to launch anything without support. And the value of having others help, others share expertise and work together is so incredibly important to me and to my activism. I can't do it without other folks. And that's why I like to share that with Halt the Harm Network and the Campaign Accelerator. So that's going to be the kind of the key pathway to launching it. And with that, I think since we have about 10 minutes left, we probably should shift to wrapping up. And Ryan has a link to sign up for the accelerator if you want to join or if you're just interested in learning more. He's going to drop a form in the chat where you can put your information down, and we'll get in touch with you about how we're putting this together. We're going to work with the folks who organize these webinars, Kate and Lori and others, to help develop really, I think, what could be a profoundly important opportunity to bring together people across the state to work on a number of local campaigns that will have a dramatic impact on the water crisis. Because again, the water crisis is statewide. It's part of a global climate crisis. It's part of a whole bunch of different things, but so many of the environmental battles depend on local communities, local community members, local activists, often who are out there without support. Some people have been campaigning for a long time, like JD, and some who are new to it. And we want to be able to support and welcome everyone into that kind of movement and give the opportunity for everyone to build a campaign like that. So I'm going to pass it to Ryan to finish this out with that.
Thanks so much. And what I'm showing you now is what it actually looks like when you're logged into Halt the Harm Network. Halt the Harm Network is an online forum where you can create a profile, you can see a member directory, you can actually connect with people around regions. We just have a few regions right now, and Colorado Watershed is one of the regions. So you can actually join a message board and connect with other people there and see who the other members are there. But it's also where we have our campaign accelerator. And so you can see just a little bit of a sneak preview of the kind of stuff that we're working on here. Worksheets to help you clarify your target. Worksheets to help you sharpen your talking points. And as a group, we give each other feedback and we work on clarifying how our message is shaped to match different audiences. So this is really fun, workshop style, extremely productive. And, I think it's important just to mention that, what it is and what it isn't, because this is not requiring a lot of extra work. This is actually working on the issues that you want to be working on. This is not just some online course. This is also access to pro bono services. So we're just really excited because we had a couple really successful accelerators already, and we're just building on that. And you all are here, and we want to open up this opportunity to you all. So I'm going to put the sign up form in the chat. And when you fill this out, you're just going to share with us a little bit about what you're working on. And then you'll be invited to go either log in if you already have an account or set up a profile in Halt the Harm Network. And we'd love to hear some input or questions from all of you about the program. And who's interested? Let us say yes in the chat if you just think this is cool and you want to show some love and interest. Lori was one of our participants in the accelerator, and I think who else is here that was in the accelerator? I saw a couple other familiar faces. I don't want to, name you, but I'll let you come forward if you want.
Hey, Ryan, I wasn't in the accelerator. I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be so fun because we all have different skills in this set, right? And I can get lost in, I know where I get stuck. I won't go into that too much, but I also wanted to call out Senator Sonia Jaquez Lewis is here and put her email in the chat. So people earlier were saying we should give input on bills, where we have someone here on the call who wants input on bills. So just check the chat, people. Thank you for being here, Senator. And I'm very excited for the campaign accelerator. I hope we have lots and lots of folks here join us, because more the merrier, right? So thanks.
there's something like really powerful about getting together on a call with people that are working on similar issues, but we're not working on the same exact issue, or the expectation isn't that we all have to agree either, that we're not forming a new organization. It's like an online class, it's a cohort. So we get to workshop our strategies and talking points, and we get to workshop and we get to support the other people in the cohort to workshop theirs. So we get to share perspectives with each other. It's just something really magical happened, when we were doing that before,
I'm going to jump in again, if that's okay, because it reminded me a lot of, I got coffee with Alexis the other day, and I'm with 350 and she's with Sierra Club. And, you don't have a lot of time to connect. And we realized there was info she had that I really wanted, and vice versa. And then also we were reduplicating efforts in ways that didn't make sense. And with our limited time, it was like, oh, you're doing that, I'm doing that. Let's put these volunteers together so that we can collectively have all this information. And if it's just the two of us and we're talking about that, if we have a whole room full of people, I think that it's that much more powerful. It was great coffee. So I feel like that's what this is. It's just like a virtual kind of knowledge share.
It's absolutely right. It's a lot of effort goes into reinventing the wheel. And let's just get, into some really basic stuff. If you've done organizing before and you need to print out a sign-up form, right, to put on a clipboard, and you're asking people to sign up for your email list, where's the form? Did you have to create one from scratch and spend 2 hours messing around in a word processor and then print it out? And, or did you just use a template? How are you managing your emails? Do you know how to keep a database of people that support your work? Do you know how to grow that list so that at a moment's notice, you can contact them? And a lot of us don't necessarily have those skills, and we don't necessarily always need those skills. But if you know what tools to use, if you know how somebody else is doing it, you just get a lot of awareness and input. And when we don't understand those skills, what happens is we are building our audience on platforms like Facebook, and Facebook can just take our audience away from us. They can change the algorithm so nobody sees our posts, and we don't even know if nobody sees we can find out, but most of us aren't going to be digging into the analytics. So there's a lot of power in creating a space for us to connect with each other that isn't depending on some of these bigger advertisement focused corporations, but instead on what we do is, it's a nonprofit. We build this network just for us, for people working on oil and gas issues. So it's a different vibe. It's not going to be as fast paced, or you're not going to feel like everybody's there, but you're going to feel like, oh, this is growing and the right people are here and they're listening. And that feels really different. So we're not recreating a social media platform here. We're creating a forum for us, and a directory and a network. PK is tuning in from Pennsylvania, says solidarity from Pennsylvania. He's been doing watchdog work. There's a whole bunch of skills just involved in watchdog work, we gotta do a workshop with you, PK. And teach people how to be watchdogs.
I'm always here.
All right.
I'll get paid for this. I just wanted to thank you, by the way, guys. It is absolutely essential that we utilize these awesome people who have the brains and knowledge and talent to gather everybody knows as an organizer and as a watchdog, I'm all over the place. To have somebody that can help me center in and zone in and remove a part of something that sucks a lot of life out of me is so important so that we can do what we do very good and focus, like for me as a disruptor and a scientist. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
JD has his hand up.
Hey, JD, good to see you.
Everybody, I appreciate that. Seriously, I just watched that video where they showed my aunt's head. I'm sorry for crying, but hey, I wanted to say, PK, you're absolutely right. I was very involved in my community, and to get demoralized to the point that they're throwing rocks at your house. And honestly, I was glad because they didn't break my windows. So they're just letting me know that. So what I'd like to do this, and this is in a respectful manner, this is almost like what I would define, without being, taking respect away from my ancestors, almost like a talking circle. I absolutely feel segregated. I feel alone in this community, even though there's a couple that are doing this, but it's very hard for me to actually step out. I actually had somebody hit me with their car. I mean, they hit my car with their car and just drove off. I mean, I can share stories, is because once you're known in a community, you're pretty well targeted. So I want to say what I've gained from this group is the solidarity. So when you hear the frustration that I'm seeing, is because I see how this goes, but I also feel that solidarity, because another thing that I always had this idea, and honestly, I really don't respect 350.org any, however, and take this to heart, I absolutely respect everybody here, Kate and everybody. So when you see that human side of whoever's in these groups, that camaraderie is even more cemented. I mean, it's just like, wow, this is something, because now it's just not this entity that I'm hanging on to. There's Kate, somebody that I actually truly have a deep respect for, and I watched her with her baby get sick and things, we start having this relationship. And I want to say with this group, this is what keeps me going. I can tolerate, like I said, maybe it's all the rocks, says, oh yeah, there you go again. At least I didn't break my window, is because I know there's still folks fighting the good cause. And just know that this to me is more like a talking circle. And I gained a lot of energy and admiration from everybody here. So please just tolerate my anger, because I've been doing this a while and I really do feel we're going backwards. But just seeing the hate. Last year they burned a cross just in another town over, this is really real for me. It's really here. So hang with me, but understand everybody here, we're doing this together. And I cannot tell you guys how much it lifts my soul. So
Thank
I just
you
want
so
to
much, JD.
hang with me, okay?
Thank you. That's a great way to wrap up and just say thank you to everybody who came here, and thanks for giving us a chance to talk about the network. And I just want to say, because we're at time, say thank you and good night. And I will stick around a little bit longer. We'll stop the recording, stick around and have an after party, hang out a little bit more. If anybody has anything else to say, we certainly want to make space for that. So anybody else want to say something to close us out before I stop the recording?
I would like to jump in and just say something based on someone's comment about experts. We are the experts, right? All of us, especially the frontline communities, and especially the people who have been harmed. And that's why, this is the Halt the Harm Network, because we're being harmed. And what I have heard from people's stories over the years, they're living this, you're living this, what's in your backyard, what's in your community. You are the expert, but people don't always see you as the expert that you are. And so this is an opportunity for us to raise each other up as the experts that we are and take our place of power.
You can't hear it, but everybody's going wild and clapping and applause.
Agreed.
I thought it was really powerful.
Yeah, thank you, Rhea. Powerful.
I mean, that's why we locally organize, right?
Mm-hmm.
We educate ourselves, we share our resources. Everybody's got so much to offer. And so we just share that knowledge base that makes us strong as a foundation.
Fine. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording. Bye, everyone.